Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to another video. In this one, I want to finally talk about my thoughts on Battlefield 6, thoughts from the reveal, and as I'm sure you guys can tell from the title of this video, I'm also going to be talking about my experiences of testing the game in labs. So yes, eventually I did get invited to Battlefield Labs. Obviously, I wasn't able to mention this to anybody because it was under NDA, but that NDA has now lifted. I can't show you my own footage, but the footage in the background here has actually been provided by my good friend Ladeus. I'm going to link his channel down below. He attended the event in London, and he was so kind to lend me some of his. So definitely go and check him out. This is probably going to be like quite the lengthy video. There are a lot of things I want to mention, of course, from the reveal, but also from my own experiences of testing labs, things that I liked about the game, things that I took issue with, feedback that we provided to DICE and how they acted on that feedback, and pretty much everything in between. So, without further ado, if you guys enjoy the content on the channel, don't forget to hit that sub button. There's going to be plenty more to come on Battlefield 6 in the future. Next week, the open beta is of course dropping. I'm going to be streaming plenty of that, and then I'll be able to bring you guys my proper first impressions of how the game is looking. Thank you guys so much for the support recently. You've been absolutely killing it here on the channel, and I couldn't do it without you, so cheers so much for that. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of each and every detail about Battlefield 6, what are my overall thoughts about the game? Well, in a nutshell, it's pretty fun, guys. It's really enjoyable. I've had a blast testing it in Battlefield Labs, even though those builds were way less polished than what you guys saw at the reveal event and what is going to be seen in the open beta. Destruction, of course, is a centerpiece. Basically, from my experiences, DICE and EA have gone in and tried to hit every single thing that the community has been asking for, whilst trying to steer away from anything related to Battlefield 2042. So people asked for more destruction, they delivered on that. People wanted smaller maps, not these large open maps like we saw in Battlefield 2042 without anything in them, and they've definitely gone ahead and delivered on that as well. Now that may come with some issues of its own, and I'm definitely going to elaborate on that later on in the video. There's a good selection of maps, there's a great selection of weapons. They're not doing anything too new and innovative with the series, which I think is actually the right way to go. I've seen a lot of people stating that as a point of criticism, but I completely understand this from DICE's perspective, that this is the time to play it safe. You know, we don't want to be shooting for the stars when the reputation of the Battlefield franchise is in the pits, right? Let's just build it up to a good level, let's do what we know how to do first, and then let's move on from there. Maybe with the next game, if this game has a huge community built up around it, then yes, with the next game, I would say let's try something new and innovative. And to be honest with you, you can definitely argue they are doing something new for the Battlefield franchise, right? They're adding in a Battle Royale, which in and of itself isn't that new and innovative, but it kind of is fairly new for the Battlefield franchise in general. And then Portal 2.0 also looks quite interesting. It seems like there's some sort of a map editor in there. Again, I've got like reservations about how good that's actually going to be. When I originally saw it, I kind of lost my cool a bit and was like, oh my god, this is insane, guys. But now having thought on it for a while, it may just turn out to be more of the same of what we saw with Portal 1, with people making, you know, 1000 XP farm servers and the like. But overall, I would say I'm very happy with what I've seen so far, I'm very happy with what I've played so far, and without further ado, let's just delve into some of the finer details of Battlefield 6. Okay, so first off, let's talk about the maps. So there were actually 13 maps, guys, data mined for Battlefield 6 if you don't count the Battle Royale map, but only 9 of them are coming to the game at launch. I think 9 is an okay number. We only had 7 really for Battlefield 2042, so 9 is definitely improvement there. I don't really have any complaints. It's a good number. It's not insane, but it's acceptable. Now, the first 3 I've played in Battlefield Labs, so that is Siege of Cairo, which was formerly known as Abbasid, which was the in-house name, I believe. And then we have the Iberian Offensive, which is set in Gibraltar, and that was the one known as Battery. Now, both of these maps are mostly infantry maps with a little bit of armor thrown in. So there's like a single tank, a single IFV in there. I really liked the close quarters action of these maps, and I think the buildings on them, the way that they've set the maps out really lended itself to the destruction that they're going for in the game. But I would say that with the ground vehicles, with the tanks and the IFVs, it did feel a little bit crowded. Now, I didn't have like unlimited time to play these maps. Most of the playtests that I played in were only 2 hours long. There were bugs, there were issues, there was like matchmaking problems, I couldn't get in, I had to restart the client and stuff like that, so I didn't spend like a solid 2 hours playing each of the maps. So maybe it just is a case of me needing to improve at the vehicle play there and get used to the layout of the map. But it did feel particularly cramped for those ground vehicles, like I say. Also, ground vehicles take a lot of damage from RPGs, and whilst I believe they're actually removing the ability for engineers to take 2 different launchers, they still get, I think, 5 or even 7 rounds for those RPGs or those launchers, and you only need like 2 or 3 shots to take down a tank. So it seems like they have rewarded the engineers this time around with way more ammunition, something that was asked for in Battlefield 2042 a lot, and constantly denied actually, so I'm not sure why they've done such a 180 on this. It seems, like I say, armor takes around the same amount of damage as in most Battlefield games, so like 3, maybe 4 shots, and you're pretty much going to be dead there. Now, the third map I played was Liberation Peak. This was, of course, previously called Capstone. It's set in Tajikistan, up in the mountains, and this is like the one that has the jets, the helicopters, and everything on there. It's a much larger map, but I would say for the air vehicles, it's still not overly big. Now, I only got one playtest, guys, where I could play in the jets and the helicopters, and I have to say, in that playtest, and it may have improved since then, I was not particularly impressed with the air gameplay. Put a pin in that for the time being. I'm going to come back and talk about the air gameplay a lot, but I would say because the jets felt kind of slow and sluggish in their turn rates, that this map, again, didn't really feel large enough. Specifically for the jets. I think it was okay for the helicopters and definitely for the tanks and everything on the ground, but it just doesn't seem that big to me. Now, that point aside, playing as infantry on this map was thoroughly enjoyable. Each and every flag was very unique. There were some with different elevation heights, like stairs going all over the place. One was kind of more like a parking lot. One of them had this big tower, and you could either make like the regular way up into the tower by the path, or you could sort of climb up some rocks at the back of the tower and try to take the snipers up there by surprise. So I actually had the most fun playing infantry, I would say, overall in Battlefield Labs. They obviously know that the majority of their player base play infantry, and it really does feel to me like they've put special emphasis on making the infantry combat as enjoyable as possible. Now let's quickly have a look at the other maps that are coming. So we've also got the Empire State map, which I didn't play, but you guys will have seen it in the playtest a couple of days ago. There was also some footage of this map in my video that I posted yesterday. That is an infantry-only map by the looks of it, although I think they were only playing like Team Deathmatch and Domination, so maybe that's just due to the game modes. Then we've got Operation Firestorm coming, you know, a fan-favorite remake here. Really, really stoked to play that one. That's been one of my favorite maps from past Battlefield games. Then we have this map here called Saints Quarters. This is the second one in Gibraltar, and this again is going to be an infantry-only map. We then have New Sobek City, which I actually first mistook for like Gulf of Oman. I don't know why, it's something about the buildings here, it reminded me of that, but this one again is set in the suburbs of Cairo. So this is Cairo's like second map here. And it says, brave the heat as infantry advance the front line in a tank or take to the skies in an attack helicopter. So no jets on this map, but there is going to be an attack helicopter. Then we have Mirak Valley. This presumably is going to be the largest map. You can also see there's trench warfare down here. So I think that's the first time we're going to see trench warfare since Battlefield 1. A prime destination for all-out warfare, Mirak Valley is the largest map at launch, a massive war-torn landscape filled with every type of vehicle. Then we have Manhattan Bridge. Engage in close quarters gunplay on the streets, take to the skies in an attack helicopter, or change the flow of combat with large scale destruction. So I'm not sure if there's going to be any tanks on this map. It sounds like there could just be one attack helicopter, so giving a little bit like Siege of Shanghai vibes there almost. Only this time you're going to be like flying through the streets. So out of the 9 maps we're getting at launch, guys, 5 of them are going to have attack helicopters on there. Only 3 of them are going to have jets, and that is going to be Mirak Valley, the one with every single vehicle. It's going to be Operation Firestorm, and it's going to be Liberation Peak. So only seeing jets on 3 maps for me is a bit of a bummer, especially since they are so atmospheric in this game. Like, if you listen to the jets buzzing overhead, the sound is absolutely crazy. But on the other hand, I can see what they're going for. They're going for a wide selection of different maps, some of them infantry, some with armor, some with only a helicopter in there, some with jets and absolutely everything, right? That's something we didn't see in Battlefield 2042. In that game, every single map basically have access to every single vehicle. Now, something you are going to notice is that there has been no mention of a scout helicopter, and at this point, we've seen no data mines, there's been no leaks about it. I'm 99.9% sure the scout heli is not in the game. I don't know if it's going to come down the line in future updates, maybe they're keeping it until then, or maybe they just realized that in Battlefield 2042 it was just so hard to balance and almost universally hated among people. I loved it because I was good at using it, but I could understand why people felt it was a little bit unbalanced, that maybe they just decided this time around, let's leave it out of the game, right? Anything people didn't like from 2042, let's just not put it in this game. I personally think that's a bit sad. The Scout Helicopter has been one of the cornerstones for vehicle play in all modern Battlefield games, so I am sad to not see it there. Who knows, maybe I'm wrong though, and we are going to see it in the future in one of the seasons. Now, I think there's a good selection of game modes coming in Battlefield 6. We've got all of the basic stuff, so we've got Conquest, Breakthrough, and Rush, the big three. Then for smaller modes, we've got King of the Hill, which has, I think, been a new game mode in Battlefield 2042. That was actually fairly enjoyable. Of course, we've got Domination, where you basically just have to capture the 3 flags, usually without any vehicles on the map. Then you've got Team Deathmatch, Squad Deathmatch. One of the ones which was actually not mentioned in the reveal at all, but it is listed here over on their website, is Payload. Now, there was a portal mode that somebody created in Battlefield 2042 with Payload there, and I played a little bit of that, and it was fairly enjoyable. Obviously, Payload is nothing new. We've played Payload in tons of games before, but it is going to be interesting to see how this pans out in a Battlefield title. Now, the other new game mode, of course, is called Escalation. The only thing they've revealed about this so far in the reveal trailer is that teams will be pushed to a final climactic battle. This is going to be coming to the all-out warfare mode, of course, so outside of that, we don't really know too much about it, but I'm certainly excited to see what it holds. Now, one of the surprises for me is that they didn't bring back operations or like grand operations, because I know that's been one of the most loved game modes in Battlefield 1, so I was a little bit surprised to see that not come back. Maybe, though, we are going to see that in the future. You know, they've got to keep some of the content back for the seasons, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case. We've got the Battle Royale mode, of course, coming a little bit later down the line. That is not going to release on October the 10th with the main game, but Portal 2.0 is going to release. And before we move on to talking about some of the finer things in the all-out warfare mode and my experiences of playing it and what I thought, let me just talk a little bit about Portal, because on the one hand, it looks very exciting. As far as I understand it, you're going to be able to boot up a map as a template and then shift around some of the assets in that map. So it's not like a full-blown map editor where you can construct your own map from scratch, at least not as far as I understand it. And you'll notice from some of the examples they showed in the video, they were like building this stairway to heaven almost with, a bridge going up into the sky. And right there, it shows that they're sort of pushing a lot of this like silly stuff. They also mentioned that you could make like a one-shot game mode, and my first reaction to that was, who would want to play a one-shot game mode in Battlefield? Like, that completely throws all the balance of the game out of the window. It sounds like somewhere that you could go, yeah, maybe just to screw around for a couple of rounds, or maybe to farm some XP. But again, I do worry that this is all Portal 2.0 is going to be used for. What I was hoping from this is that we're going to see some well-balanced, well-thought-out game modes, the same way that we saw Dota as a mod come out of Warcraft 3, the same way that we saw Counter-Strike as a mod come out from Half-Life. I thought we could see some truly innovative things from the community in Portal 2.0. And I don't know, maybe that is going to be the case, but I just don't want to get carried away and, fooled into thinking that this is going to be like Battlefield's second modding coming, because of course we've seen plenty of modding in past Battlefield games before, all the way back in, 20 years ago, but it just isn't exactly clear what tools are going to be at our disposal. Now, this time around, they have said that they're not going to be capping the XP. For anybody who wasn't here on the launch of Battlefield 2042, let me just fill you in on what happened. Basically, they said, here's this Portal mode, you can make your own game modes, you can make your own rules, and people basically constructed modes where you could get kills on AI soldiers as quickly as possible and farm XP. That then led DICE to completely disable earning XP in Portal. And then, of course, nobody played Portal, so they really kind of shot themselves in the foot with that. The fact that they didn't have the foresight to know that that was going to happen was honestly kind of laughable. Hopefully this time around, they're going to rectify all of those problems, though. Again, I'm sure we're going to learn more about this in the future, so I'm not going to completely, like, pass judgment on it yet. I am excited to see what comes out of that, but I also don't want to get, you know, too super excited or overhype it before the game's released. Okay, so with that said, let's get into some of the nitty-gritty, some of the details about Battlefield Labs, and I want to give you guys some of my experiences of the testing that I did on the game. So first of all, let's talk movement. Movement is a big topic. There are some movement mechanics that have been removed from the game, like there is no tactical sprint anymore, but there are some movement mechanics left in there. You can slide, you can lie prone on your back. If you fall from a great height, you will go into a roll. And looking over on Reddit, a lot of people don't like the look of the movement. I'm sure a lot of these people haven't even played the game, and they're just looking at the builds that they've seen. Now, I do want to caveat what I'm about to say with the fact that some of the builds have changed. Like, the build we watched the creators play isn't the exact same build that I played in Labs, and it's changed since then. But I can tell you that when I played Labs, sliding around corners, jumping around corners, all that sort of behavior was not viable at all. So I think what's happening is we're seeing somebody looking at a single clip of somebody jumping around a corner and killing somebody, or sliding around a corner and killing somebody, and maybe they got lucky, right? Maybe it does massively throw off your aim, it gives you a lot of sway, but you can still get lucky with your shots, right? So you shouldn't look at a single clip and take it out of context and then just deduce from that that the movement in the game is trash. I definitely tried stuff like that. I tried sliding around corners and drop-shotting people and all these kind of, you know, cheesy maneuvers, and it didn't work out well for me. I died almost like 90% of the time, and as far as I can see, sliding is really a defensive maneuver to get you behind cover. I really do not want to see them gut the movement in Battlefield 6 because it's in a great spot right now. I've been playing a lot of Battlefield 1 recently, and the movement in that game is honestly so slow that I just don't like playing the game. The game is fantastic in its own right, the atmosphere, great, it's one of the best looking Battlefield games, but the movement just makes the gameplay super boring for me. So I really don't like the tone that a lot of people in the community are taking, where they obviously want, you know, Battlefield 6 to be more like Battlefield 1, but on the other hand, I'm also not saying I want people to be able to slide around corners and use that ability offensively with no penalty to their aim. But what I think we should do is just wait for the beta. Once the beta comes around, there's going to be thousands and thousands of people all playing the game at once, all sharing their experiences. And if you go out and you play the beta, and like sliding around corners and shooting people is literally the meta that has evolved, then yes, okay, maybe you should be kicking up a fuss and saying, DICE, you need to nerf the slide. But I don't think we should just look at like a couple of random clips from one playtest and then just deduce from that that's like sliding needs a nerf. You know, you need to actually go and play the game for yourself at first. I have played the game. Again, I don't know how it's going to be in some of the newer builds. Maybe the slide is faster, and maybe it is going to be a problem, and I might eat these words. But I'm going to wait until we've played that open beta to judge it. Now, the TTK in this game is fairly quick. I do see a lot of people saying that it's maybe a little bit too fast. From my experience playing, I didn't feel like it was too fast. I feel like the run speed in the game is a lot slower than, for example, Battlefield 2042, but the TTK is actually a bit longer. It takes you a little bit longer to kill somebody. So those two things kind of equal each other out, because it takes you longer maybe to run across a road and get behind some cover, but it also means you can take more rounds. Now, if it does turn out to be too fast, this is something that's easily tweakable on DICE's end. They can just change the damage numbers for all of the weapons around, like problem solved. So again, I don't think they need to make any drastic changes until we've seen some more extensive testing in the open beta. Now, the class system in Battlefield 6 is an interesting one. It's a rather complicated one. So most of you guys will know how this works, but you've got signature gadgets for each class that they each take with them. So for example, the engineer gets the repair torch. Each class then also has a signature trait, which is some sort of a perk for them. Then you've got your signature weapon, which provides an additional buff if you use the correct weapon on the correct class. So for example, if you use an assault rifle on the assault class, you will get faster transitions from sprint to shoot and switching between assault rifles and other weapons. And then on top of all of that, you've got one of these two different trees that you can choose, right? So for example, the Recon has the sniper tree and then the Pathfinder tree. And as you score points in the game, you know, you kill people, you cap flags and etc., you'll move up this tree, getting 3 passive perks. And then at the end, you'll get a 4th perk, which is actually another gadget that you can call in. So you've got a signature gadget, then you've got 2 gadgets that you can select by yourself, and then potentially a 4th gadget you can call in the tree. And then you've also got to think about taking the signature weapon and what the trait is for your class. To me, it's a little bit like overcomplicated to explain this to somebody who's maybe never even played a Battlefield game before. You know, I do like the depth to it. Maybe there's going to be a lot of theory crafting around this about what the best setups are. But on the other hand, it may just sort of fade into the background the same way that squad perks did in Battlefield 4. I don't think anybody ever really worried about those too much. As for the actual classes themselves, I mainly played as Assault and the Support class. I have to say, I think the Support class in this game is probably going to be the most popular because it has a bag that supplies not just meds, but also ammo and probably gadgets as well. It gets the SMGs as its signature weapon, which is a really great selection there. And then if you're running with open weapons, of course, you can pick whatever you want. So the support class is looking really, really strong. The assault class, I'm really not too sure how many people are going to play this, because unlike Battlefield 3 and 4, this class does no longer have heals. It doesn't have revives anymore, and just recently, they've taken away the ability for the med pen to actually heal. It's not a med pen anymore, it's more of a stim pen, and it makes you run faster and stuff like that. So, I don't know, without the self-healing on the assault class, are we going to see as many people playing this? The main real perk of the assault class is this weapon sling ability, and that allows you to take 2 primary weapons. Now, for anybody who saw the update yesterday in my video, the community manager Kevin Johnson for Battlefield, he came out and basically said that they're changing weapon sling so that you can't take 2 synergy weapons. So you can't take, for example, an assault rifle and an LMG, or an assault rifle and a sniper rifle, but you can take an assault rifle and a shotgun, or you can take a DMR or some of these non-signature weapons. Now, I honestly think it's still going to be overpowered, and I can tell you guys that I spent most of my playtime as Assault, and I used this weapon sling ability, and I had an assault rifle and an SMG. Now, yes, it's probably clear that we're not going to be able to take SMGs with them, but with this setup, I kitted out my assault rifle. I think I had the L85A2, and I basically turned it into a laser beam at range, and then my second weapon, the SMG, had the best laser in the game in it, and I turned it into a hipfire beast. And every time I entered a house, I would just switch to the SMG, hipfire everybody down, and then whenever I was in these longer range situations, I would switch to the assault rifle. And it really just felt like I could do everything. Now, if what they are saying is true, and you can no longer equip, an SMG with an assault rifle, that still leaves the shotguns, right? You could do this just as effectively with a shotgun with a laser on there. So, I think it is still a problem, and I would like to see the weapon sling completely removed, but at the same time, that means the assault class loses all of its identity, because that's really the main thing it has going for it outside of the grenade launchers that it has. Now, the engineer class, it's pretty much, the standard engineer class you've seen from most games. You get a launcher, you get a repair torch. It's effective, like I mentioned earlier, you get way more rounds for your RPGs than you would in previous games, but, it's an engineer. The Recon class, I would say, as always in Battlefield games, probably the weakest of the 4 classes. At least in my eyes, that's the one I'm going to go to the least, but if you're somebody who really enjoys sniping, you may feel differently about that. I'm honestly going to say I didn't play Recon at all in labs, so I can't comment that much on how effective they are, but I saw that there were the fewest Recon players. So what is the gunplay like? Well, let's talk about the sound, right? We haven't even touched on the sound. The sound in Battlefield 6, it's something that just absolutely smacks you in the face as soon as you play the game, in the best way. It's so immersive. It's really hard to describe. You guys have been watching streams of this, right? So you probably haven't had the sound very loud, but I can promise you, as soon as you get your hands on the beta and you crank up that sound, you're going to feel so immersed right away. Without a shadow of a doubt, it is the best sound design in any Battlefield game in terms of immersivity that we've seen since Battlefield Bad Company 2. I will say when it comes to situational awareness, I didn't really hear footstep sounds too much, and maybe that's part and parcel of the more bassy sound that they've gone for in the game, these really impactful shots from guns and tanks rumbling by. Maybe you just don't hear footsteps as well, so that might be a bit of a detriment, but overall that is really one of the best and most enjoyable things about the game. Now the gunplay is really quite beamy, I would say. You know, if you learn the gun system, you pick the right attachments, it's not hard to turn pretty much any weapon like an assault rifle, a carbine, or even an SMG into a laser beam, and I think there's a bit of skill depth lacking there. I would like to see burst firing coming back, so I do think they need to implement some sort of spread mechanic there. I know a lot of the leaks that you guys saw were people that just didn't know how to play the game right, and it looked like there was tons and tons of recoil, but I can promise you, the recoil, once you tame it, once you've kitted out the weapon the right way, it's just as beamy as Battlefield 2042, really. But it does feel fun, it does feel impactful. I think that's got to be one of the like foundational things for the game, like shooting the gun has to feel good. And it does feel good, right? So I think you guys are going to enjoy it, but you're just going to come to realize, like, once you've gotten, like, the meta loadout, like, oh, you use this attachment on the muzzle, you use this grip, and this stock, and etc., and that's just the loadout that everybody uses for this weapon, then it's a laser beam, right? As long as you can pull down on your mouse and control the recoil, it's really not that hard, and a lot of that skill expression kind of goes out the window. Now, one of the controversial things in the game when it comes to the Gunsmith is that there's different types of ammo for each weapon, and based on the ammo type that you select, it changes the headshot multiplier. And some of them gave you a headshot multiplier of like 2.5. Some of them maybe only 1 or 1.5. So this leads to a lot of engagements where it's completely unpredictable. You have no idea what sort of rounds the guy you're fighting with has in his rifle, and if he just gets lucky and hits like a double headshot on you, he's going to 2-tap you in the head. And with the notoriously bad netcode of Battlefield, I know they said they're improving it for BF6, but I'll believe it when I see it. I think there's definitely going to be netcode issues because it's just sort of inherent to having 64 players running around. You are going to feel like you get one-framed a lot if people have that sort of ammo. And you can bet that people are going to be running the ammo that has the highest headshot multiplier. Now, there is a bit of a trade-off. I believe you get 100 points to spend on your weapon customization, right? And like, the best ammo that gives you that 2.5 headshot multiplier, it costs 50 points, so that only leaves you with 50 for the grip and everything, so it's going to make your weapon way less controllable, but it still isn't going to stop those lucky fluke moments where somebody just hits that headshot and your HP just drops like that, you know. It just makes the gunplay so much less predictable, and personally, I don't like it at all. I think they should just remove it, or maybe keep like the weapon types in there and figure out a different way to rebalance them. Now, for when I played, I haven't noticed any aim assist so far. I think I was always playing with crossplay on, so I was certainly playing against PlayStation players and Xbox players as well as PC players, and I didn't notice like anything weird or out of the ordinary. The mouse input as well, it felt fine to me. I did see some people there was one test over the weekend where there was like this 72-hour test. I did speak to some people who said that the mouse input wasn't good. I couldn't really sense anything, so, you know, I don't want to say they're wrong, but take that for what it's worth. It didn't really affect me. And that is going to lead us on to one of the biggest topics, guys, and that is the vehicles. So I can definitely tell you that the strongest and most well-designed vehicles in the game are the ground vehicles. The tanks, the AFVs, they felt really fun to play in. They were fairly well balanced. I did feel like the turret turn speed is a little bit slow. Again, with a lot of these maps, right, you're very close quarters. You don't have a lot of room to maneuver in the armor. You've got engineers all over the place with surplus amounts of rockets, and you can only take like maybe 3 or 4 hits before you go down. Of course, in the test I was playing, there was no APS or anything like that. We just had like smoke, right? I don't even think there was a repair. We actually had to go to like repair stations to get back up there. So it did feel like you died really, really quick if people wanted you to die, and you couldn't really turn that turret around on a swivel and sort of take people out. But on the other hand, tanks, IFVs, armor in general, incredibly powerful. Like, the secondary HMG absolutely tore through infantry, and, like, I think they've made them way more glass cannon-like in this game. However, when it comes to the aircraft, I can't really say I had the same positive experience. Now, I do want to caveat this by saying I've only played the aircraft once, because they were only available on the capstone map, on the mountain map in Tajikistan, and this was like 2-3 builds ago, so maybe they have seen some improvements since then, but I was watching Silk play a little bit at the reveal event, and as far as I could see, the movement mechanics look pretty much the same as when I used them. I didn't think the jets were too hot at all. Like, they felt sluggish to me. They felt like they had a lot of weight to them compared to Battlefield 4. As far as I could tell, they've implemented the same speed model as they have from Battlefield 2042. So there is really no speed control in this game like there was in BF4. Basically, you just hold accelerate. The faster you accelerate and use your afterburner, the tighter you turn. I'm not sure if there's a limit to your afterburner amount the same way there is in 2042, so, you know, maybe that's somewhat of a skill curve there, like you have to manage that afterburner. But it felt very surface level. It didn't feel particularly skillful. The cannons were very, very unreliable. Like, if you strafe the battlefield, they didn't shoot in a straight line like they do in BF4 or even in 2042 right now. They had similar amounts of spread that the jets did in 2042 when that game released. So hitting infantry with them is pretty much impossible. As far as I could tell, the AGMs barely did any damage. Like, I don't even think I got a single kill with them. But the bombs were pretty good. So the attack jets get these little bombs. You get this circular reticle the same way you do in, like, Battlefield 5. You drop the bombs, and they do some decent damage. But honestly, I think the JDAM system from Battlefield 4 was way cooler, where you actually went in the cockpit and had this little overview of the map there. Now, maybe there is more to be seen, you know, there's more weapons and stuff to unlock for them. I haven't tried all of the different types of jet yet, so I don't want to completely pass judgment, but I will say that I was not impressed. They felt more like a gimmick, like you kind of get in there, you have your fun, and then you're just supposed to die after a while and continue playing infantry. And maybe that's the way DICE want it to be. They don't want you to stay in a jet for the entire round. They don't want to give you that skill ceiling availability so that you can get good enough to stay around to stay alive for that entire round. However, similarly to the tanks, they also do insane damage. So whilst the cannon does have a lot of spread and you can't really hit infantry to save your life, you can hit vehicles, and the jet absolutely shreds attack helicopters. I think it does far too much damage. It does so much damage that there is zero chance the attack helicopter will get time to react before it's dead. It's like a split second, and it is just gone out of the sky. I've seen the damage in the build that the content creators were playing is exactly the same as the one I played, like damage-wise, so they haven't changed it at all. It's going to be interesting to see, like, in the open beta. I really want to jump in the jets there and, like, give them some serious time in the beta. You guys will be able to see me streaming that here on the channel, and then I'll give you guys, like, you know, my proper final impressions of what they're going to be like in the final game. As for the attack helicopters, I would say I enjoyed them more than the jets. They felt a little bit more maneuverable, but they still kind of felt Battlefield 2042-y. Like, the yaw is very heavy. It like, the weight to them wasn't as controllable as it is in BF4. Like, in BF4, you have weight to the helicopters, yes, but if you know how to control them, you can use that weight to your advantage. In Battlefield 6, they just kind of felt sluggish and unmaneuverable. Like, you always kind of strafed way too fast over the battlefield and sort of overextended yourself. So I'm not a massive fan of the flight model. The secondary gunner seat doesn't get TV missiles, also not a big fan of that. And they've actually completely changed the way the gunner works. So instead of going 30 rounds and then reloading, you actually now get 12 rounds which fire in quick succession, and then you get like a lightning fast reload. So it's kind of like you spray out these 12 rounds, and then you get a little reload, and you get another 12 rounds. So you can only take out like one infantry target at a time, then you're going to wait for this mini reload. I don't really hate the system. It was still very powerful, and the time I spent gunning, I was able to kill, you know, plenty of infantry players. So I think that's fine. But yeah, overall, like, just flight mechanics-wise, wasn't too impressed. I do hope we're going to see some improvements, but I really wouldn't hold your breath, guys. I feel like this is just not the focus for DICE in this game. As I was going through the maps earlier on, there's only 3 out of 9 maps that have jets on them. There's only 5 out of the 9 maps that have attack helicopters on them, whereas probably like most of them have some sort of armor. So it kind of makes sense that the vehicles they're going to put the least amount of time and effort into are the jets, if those are the vehicles that are going to be used the least. So if jet gameplay, helicopter gameplay is a big deal to you, again, I'd recommend trying the open beta, seeing what you think about it after that, because I'm almost certain that really not much is going to change between the open beta and the release of the game. It's only 2 months, so as far as I'm concerned, when I play the open beta, what I see there is what I'm going to get in the game. So what I would say to you guys is that you should play the open beta, and then if you like what you play in the open beta, go ahead and pre-order the game. There's really no need to pre-order the game early. That just sends like the wrong messages, in my opinion, to EA. Of course, a lot of people are going to do it. Like, I'm definitely going to play this game 100%. And I understand if you're in a position where you're like, I am 100% going to play this game, then like, fair enough, I guess. But there's also no harm, no foul by playing the open beta first and then pre-ordering. So I would definitely urge everybody to do that. Like I said, my overall impressions were extremely positive. Like, this game absolutely blows Battlefield 2042 out of the water. Like, it's not even funny. I cannot wait to uninstall Battlefield 2042 and just play Battlefield 6 instead. Really, really looking forward to it. Like I mentioned, guys, I'm going to be streaming the heck out of the beta in a few days, both on the channel here on YouTube, but also over on Twitch, which is in the first link in the description. So wherever you guys want to watch, feel free to come along and be welcome. I know this has been a very long video, so thank you to anybody who watched this all the way to the end. As always, leave me your thoughts down below. What do you think of Battlefield 6? Have you played it? Were you in Battlefield Labs, etc.? Subscribe to stay up to date with everything Battlefield, and I will see you guys in the next one.